So today, hello Stephanie.
Hello, Mona.
Us again. Welcome to episode 5 of our series, What is Knowledge Management and What Should You Care? So, my name is Mona Rosenberg and I'm here with Stephanie Barnes, internationally known knowledge management consultant, author, and creator of Radical Knowledge Management. Stephanie, we had already 4 times when we talked. And the first thing was what knowledge management is all about. The second episode was what radical knowledge management is all about. The third one was what can be done to bring more creativity into organizations. The last one was what should be done to create a knowledge sharing culture. Yes? So, and today we are talking of eliciting tacit knowledge.
Yes, we are.
It's all about knowledge management. Yes?
Yeah.
But there are so many facets about it, and I think you came across all kinds of methods and types, so you can maybe explain a little bit more what is so fascinating about the world of eliciting tacit knowledge.
There's been a lot of talk about tacit knowledge over the last, I don't know, it seems to come in waves, but there's been a lot more talk of it in the last year and a half or so with all the AI tools that are available now and using some of them to elicit the tacit knowledge. So tacit knowledge is the knowledge in our heads. That's really not easily documented. And so it's oftentimes, or at least sometimes, you don't realize that you know it because you just do it, right? You've been doing something for years and you do it almost automatically without thinking about it. And so, so getting that out can be difficult, and and certainly there's some things that can't be written down,
So is it nearly the same? I like to compare it to project management because everyone nearly did a project, right? And haven't had a real project management course or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Is it nearly the same? Can we compare it?
Yeah, I think in that sense you can compare it. There are things that you do that just make sense to you that you haven't really thought about. At the beginning of the pandemic, I did a couple of courses on design thinking and Agile or Scrum. I did a Scrum Master, and because there had been, and it continues to be, a lot of talk around those things, and I did the course just to find out what the big deal was about, honestly.
Yeah.
And I did the courses, and I'm like, what's the big deal? This is how I work anyway. This is how I've worked for 25 years. Like, nobody taught me. I just did it. Now, I also think that it's why I have been successful, or at least one of the reasons. But yeah, so that's kind of tacit knowledge, so people throw up, these models of things that are really, I don't want to say common sense because it's not necessarily common sense, but it does come more naturally if you're given, education and background and experience and things.
And I think you need to pay attention to everything you do and think about it and ask people to learn from others as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That pairing people up. And this is a good way to transfer tacit knowledge is through mentorship or through coaching or job sharing activities where you're actually working side by side with the other person and walking them through and showing them how to do things and working with them, very closely so that they're learning while you're doing and you're watching what they're doing when they have their turn. And so this is a good way to transfer it. I think about when we think about things like, now this isn't necessarily a work thing for a lot of people unless you're a baker, but how to make bread and how to knead it, or croissants, and that kind of things that are very tactile. This is a good example of you need to.
I think so too. And I had just an idea in my head. So, and every company, I think, when you did an education in knowledge management, you have knowledge about how this is done in theory, but every company works different and has different processes, and you have to talk to people and to others anyway.
Yeah. Right? And not just different processes, but different cultures. And yes. So different ways of working together or not working together, as the case may be. So yeah, it's hard to say, well, we're only going to do it this way. And this is, there's good people talk about good practices and best practices, and really, I get really hesitant about best practices because it's so context sensitive. Yeah. That good practices, is a much better descriptor. So yeah, you need the feel, you need to see how things are.
So is there a way you can make tacit knowledge explicit?
So yes, you're not going to get all of it documented, but you can get some of it documented, certainly. And so some of the things that I do in the work that I do is using creativity and using arts-based interventions to get people out of this. When you get really focused on something, you forget about all the rest of the things that you might know that are connected. So I use arts-based interventions to get people out of that focused thinking, get them into divergent thinking, and let things sort of float to the surface, and ask them questions, and and work that way through it. There are tools, and this is where the AI comes in, that will allow you to create a set of questions to ask people, and then interview the person in video or audio or both, and then it'll transcribe it, and then you can create maps out of that, maps of the knowledge, and then it becomes searchable and all that kind of thing. So, and people will say more than they'll write down. So getting someone to speak and tell stories and work through a set of questions is a good way to do that, and really get much richer information than you would if you gave them a pen and pencil and said, can you write this down? write down everything you know.
Yeah. So you don't think that it is helpful to have a storage somewhere for the company? So companies are different, where they have their use cases or their work through their processes and all that stuff.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Yeah. So once the AI tool captures, the interview, I've seen these tools used in different situations. So once it's captured, then yeah, absolutely goes into a repository, or even without the tools. I mean, things go into a repository, and they're sorted and organized so that people can find them, sometime later on. And hopefully, if it's done well, then there's a timestamp, to the recording of the video, and they can actually go back and watch the person, that part of the video, and listen to the person actually talking about it, and pick up some of the nuances that may have been captured in the videos. Yeah. So that's really interesting. So have you heard of people who never did an education on knowledge management and are very, very professional in what they are doing? Is this enough? Yeah. Well, yes and no. I say yes. I'm sure that there are people out there that know nothing about knowledge management who are doing this work and just don't realize that there's a name for
Yeah.
what they're doing, and that happens a lot.
Yeah. This is
Because,
something I think also. Yeah.
everybody knows about exit interviews. Well, exit interview is a form of knowledge retention, or can be, depending how it's executed, and capturing that person's knowledge for sharing with whoever's going to come
Yeah.
after them.
Mhm.
But a lot of people, a lot of organizations may not necessarily think of exit interviews
Yeah.
as
You're absolutely right. It's not done that much.
no, well, and they just don't. A lot of people just don't think about. I think we've talked about this in some of the other series, other episodes. Knowledge management is so broad, and there's so many activities that
Mhm.
fall under the umbrella of knowledge management. People don't necessarily look at the umbrella. They just look at we need to save this for, we need to document our processes
Mhm.
so that we don't keep reinventing the wheel, or so that it's ready for the next person that comes in, and they document it and put it in a repository somewhere, but they're not strategic about the
Mhm.
about knowledge. They're doing the right things, which is why I said yes and no, because they're doing the right things. They're just not doing it with the name of knowledge management.
Yeah. So they don't think holistically, so that everything is part of.
No, they take this industrial age sort of
Mm.
thinking of breaking everything down into smaller and smaller bits, and
Yeah.
production line, and all that kind of thinking, and don't ever step back and look at the big picture, the
Yeah.
overarching bit. So
Yeah, and I think this is a problem. So because there are so many things, and this is maybe one of the issues, that nobody knows where to put knowledge management, where
yeah,
to place it, right?
yeah. it's I don't know. I've been working in this for 25 years. Nobody knows where to put it. It falls in under technology all too often because of the technology
Yeah.
that's used to enable it, and that's okay. I get why it's there. I'm starting to see it pop up more often in HR or learning and development because of
Mhm.
the people aspect of it, and
Yeah.
the learning and development, recognition that knowledge management's about learning. So I'm seeing it pop up there a lot more often than I was, 20 or 25 years ago. Um, but there's a yeah, it would fit. It needs to be at the top of the higher up in the organization, because it goes across all of those areas. It goes across HR, it goes across learning and development, goes across IT. I've seen KM teams in marketing departments, marketing and communication, because there's a big component that's about knowledge in marketing and communications. And so I've seen it sitting in that function. And that's okay. They're taking care of their silo. It doesn't then spread out to the rest of the company and interconnect with the rest of the company, and
Mhm.
looking at the sharing and all the things that need to happen on a higher level. So
Okay. So,
yeah.
but when I hear this, so it's for me, it's a shame that they thinking in silos and not bringing it up to where it belongs to. So this should be a hierarchy uh, below the CEO, but every
Yeah,
company is different, yeah. But in most cases, if you have bigger companies, it should be there so
it
that you
should be.
can work strategically.
It should be. And sometimes I see it once in a while in a chief of staff role. That's a
Hmm.
good, or a strategy, officer role. So that's a good place for it, because that then facilitates that cross-functional
Yes.
um, sharing and more strategic approach to knowledge.
Yeah. That was a good hint. Sharing. Ways of share tacit knowledge.
Yeah. Well, as we were talking about a minute ago, mentoring and coaching is a good way of doing that. But just and communities of practice, lots of organizations have some kind of communities practice program. Again, they may not call it that, but from a
It's
knowledge management perspective, that's what it is. You can call it whatever you want, but that's
yeah,
what, from a knowledge management perspective, that's what you're doing.
yeah.
And bringing people together, to share knowledge and to build the trust relationships and things that they need for that, and transfer it that way. And a lot of times there are artifacts from whatever these are, methods are, slide decks and documents, and was talking about videos and transcripts and things. So those artifacts then can go into the repository for later use. And so then it's about, there needs to be some training and education around
Mm.
letting people know that what's available, so that they do go out and look, go use their search. And so search needs to be done well in the organization. And 25 years into this, I still see organizations really struggling with search.
Really?
Yeah, really. Yeah. And
Okay.
yeah, this is a surprise to me too. There's so many things. I've been doing this for so long. There's so many things I like, why are we still doing this wrong? Having struggling with the same problems that we struggled with 25 years ago. So
But believe me, there are more issues around technology-based things which are really outdated, and it's done. Or they do.
yeah,
They still do it.
yeah, they do.
Yeah, but what can we do? We were talking about learning and doing things differently with people. How can you implement these kind of things that they embrace it, these tacit and eliciting things?
Yeah, there's a lot of change management activities that go on with that. And when you get into change, you start looking at culture
Yes.
issues, and there's some real problems in a lot of organizational cultures, because of what's gone on in the last 5 years, 4 years, 5 years, over the pandemic. And all the turnover and remote work, and I'm a big fan of remote work, but you need to be much more purposeful in creating those connections with people, and building that trust, especially when new people are coming on, and and they don't know everyone, and and those onboarding processes need to be more focused, more deliberate. And I do see some of that happening, certainly, that those onboarding and offboarding, and yeah, keeping people engaged throughout their life cycle in the organizations. But there's and this is again where I come in with my radical. I never miss a chance to talk about radical KM. It
Yeah,
has,
yeah, yeah,
it builds those connections, and art has long been used as a team building activity. So we can do this virtually, and just in the process of setting up some workshops to do virtually. um, you know it In the virtual world, it actually is a bit nicer in some respects to do it, and it allows us to break up the time, rather than sit on Zoom for
yes.
a whole day for 3 days in a row. Then we break it up into,
Smaller.
90-minute or 2-hour segments, and do it over a series of weeks. And it allows people to build that trust, and to try some of the stuff out, and come back and say, well, this is what happened, or it didn't go the way I thought, and what should I do differently? And and get that sort of coaching and that support in actually trying this stuff out, and forming. So there is an aspect of team building to it. There's an aspect of learning and innovation and creativity and tacit knowledge elicitation.
Yeah.
um all kinds of goodness comes
All
out.
kind of goodness. That's good. Yeah, and just to remember the people, art-based interventions are not only paintings.
Oh no, not. There's drawings. I have my story cubes. We use storytelling games.
Yeah, there are so many ways to be creative, to facilitate it, to engage people, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. We do some poetry and some improv. We have a great time. So and form those relationships and do some innovative thinking and creation, while we're at it. So it's all good. We have a lot of fun. And
Yeah,
the
you have, yeah, the red nose one. Yes, yes, yes.
yeah, do
You
a video with my clown nose.
yeah, and the fun factor of it is that all the creativity leads to innovation and to innovative things and thinking, and you come across different ways of thinking, different ideas, and this is what, and then share these things in between these sessions. I think this is the real value, right?
Yeah, we learn so much better when it's playful, and it's the same with coming up with ideas. It's so much we do so much better when we're relaxed and playful and curious, and not staring at some PowerPoint slides or some Excel spreadsheet or something. So yeah, having a bit of fun helps us be more creative and innovative.
Yeah.
So plus it's just fun.
Yeah,
We're serious enough. There are
nice.
enough serious things going on in the world. It's good to have fun for a few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and do you know companies, or do you have a success story from companies who are working with tacit knowledge and with creativity and things like that? Do you have some success stories of that?
Oh, yes, of course I do.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know.
I try to think which
People
one
out there.
to share. It's there's there are little snippets of things that come to me that were so meaningful. We did those scribble drawings in one of my workshops,
Mhm.
and we did it just as a warm-up exercise, just to get things going. And after this little 5-minute workshop or 5-minute scribble drawing, someone said, "Oh, I've been struggling with this branding problem for like 3 or 4 months and couldn't figure it out. And now because we've done this scribble drawing, I know what I want to do, how I'm going to solve this branding problem." The workshop wasn't about branding at all. It was some other project, so some other, process and problem that we were there to solve. But the act of doing this scribble drawing, launched a solution to another problem that this person had been trying to solve. So, and this is the wonderful thing, and also I will say the frustrating thing is there will be something that comes out of these activities. You just don't know where or when or how, but there will be something that happens.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that I've done around that. That and I think I've mentioned this case study before. An organization that had struggled for 10 years to solve a problem and came into and did some work in a studio. They'd said the KM team had set up a studio in the organization in the offices, and they solved the problem within a week. So they struggled out for 10 years and then come into the art studio kind of space and solve the problem within 5 days. So
But how did they came across the idea to set something like that up, to work on the issue, on the problem?
They were working with a university to do, and they connected to this wasn't my work, unfortunately. It was done in conjunction with, I think, with a university. And so they had connected with this professor at a university, and he worked with them to set the studio up and things. So I imagine that they have, based on my own experience when I've done my MBA and things, the businesses will often come to universities and say, I have this problem. Do you have anybody that can help?
Mhm.
So yeah, I assume that it's some kind of situation like that
Yeah.
they came across and like I say, solved the problem, and it ran for a few years, until a couple of years, until the management changed and they shut the program down. But it was successful. I think about Xerox PARC this was before I was even in KM, but they had an artist in residence program, and again, it was supposed to run for a year just as a trial to see what happened. It ended up running for 5 or 6 years, because the artists that were paired with the R&D people in the labs asked so many questions and wanted to do so many different things with the technology that it was really beneficial to the products that were in the funnel that Xerox was creating at the time. So that was from the 1990s that happened. So,
Yeah. But I really think that creative companies, tech companies, they need something like that. They need creative rooms to interact, to experience things and test things out. So is it very, very expensive to set a room up like this? Can be.
it depends on how much stuff you want to do, what you want to do. Now, I'm thinking, I've talked with a lot of organizations about setting up, because people are working remotely or hybrid, and they have this unused office space, about setting up a studio in the office space, because the space is going unused. And then, so buying some art supplies and setting the room up. Yeah. And then there's a reason for people to come into the office, right? Because they're going to do something that they're not going to do at home.
Yeah.
So, you're going to have everybody come into the room for a week and do a facilitated process around, problem solving and innovation, whatever the reason is, and that's going to have the team building effect, but it's also going to solve some problems and create some new solutions and things. So, yeah, but yeah, as for cost, it's as much or as little as you want it to be.
Okay.
I know organizations too that have just, as a starting point for this stuff, is just created a corner in the break room with some art supplies, so that people, at least on an individual basis, could go in and use, the art supplies and do some painting, do some drawing, do something creative.
But I think it should be, and this is for me, it's a cultural thing. They should be allow themselves to do it. Sometimes they do not allow themselves to do things like this because it's unusual.
It is, and there's so much pressure to be productive, and and to squeeze out all the, any kind of, I'm going to say, downtime or quiet time is perceived as a waste of time, because you're not busy doing something.
Yeah, but
except knowledge work.
Ideas don't come in across when you are busy.
No, there's no room for them when you're busy. So knowledge work needs the space to reflect, to iterate, to ask some questions and follow the threads and just be playful about learning, about the questions. So giving ourselves permission to do these kinds of things, whether it's the art space stuff that I talk about, or going out for a walk if you're working from home, go walk around the block, or go to the park and do that kind of stuff, just to take a break and then come back and work and be a lot more efficient. So
this was a real great ending of our talk, but I don't want to miss to say that we have recorded all the other sessions. And if somebody is in need of one of the sessions, the last sessions or this session, so come back to Stephanie or myself, and we will give you a link so that you can have a look, and also for this, and talk to us, right?
Yes. We love to talk.
So then we can help you.
Yes.
Or give advice or something like that. So many, many thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
So have a wonderful Monday evening.
You too.